Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can.
PSSM USA. Hello, Masters. PSSM USA Book Club invites you all to another wonderful session by speaker Prathyusha, madam, all the way from Dallas. She's going to talk about Agartha, book name Agartha 2, part 2. Before that, let us meditate for 10 minutes. Madam is going to guide us. Madam, over to you. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Karuna Master. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Let's start off with meditation, but before that, let's extend our deepest gratitude to Brahmarshi Patriji for providing us this platform. And let's also extend our gratitude to the PSSM USA organization. And last but not the least, let's also extend our gratitude to Agartha Masters, who is helping us drive this session today. All right, with that, let's get into meditation. Okay, relax your body completely. Let's take 5 deep inhalations and exhalations to completely relax your body, and then we'll slowly get into meditation. Relax your body. Take a deep inhalation and exhale out completely. Let's do one more time. Inhale deeply and exhale out completely. Let's do another time. Inhale deeply and release it out completely. Relax your body. Relax your facial muscles. Relax your shoulders. Relax your hands. Relax your fingers. Relax your chest. Relax your tummy. Relax your lower part of the body. And relax your feet and your toes. Let's do 2 more deep breaths and exhale out. Inhale deeply and exhale out completely, relaxing your body. Let's do one more last deep inhalation and exhale out. Gently observe your breath, your normal, natural breath. Master, can we have music, please, for a few minutes?
Yes, ma'am. My
Are you able to hear my music?
Her friends. It wasn't until I found a nurse practitioner and her saying, well, let's.
Can you hear?
We can't hear Karuna Master.
Okay. Now? Yes.
Yes. 1 minute.
Thank you, masters. Slowly come back to your physical body. Slowly open your eyes. Madam, over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Karna Master. Okay, let me share my screen here. All right. Good evening, Masters. So since last week, we had a session 1 on that book, Agartha. And today we're going to talk about the second session. So before we get into the second session, let's do a quick 2 to 5 minute recap of what we discussed in the session 1, right? So Timothy Brook, so he is based out of Seattle, and due to a shipwreckage, he was actually saved by Agarthan master Manuel, and he was taken into inside of the core of the earth, which is called Agartha kingdom. And there he actually happens to travel within the telos using a hovercraft under the guidance of Master Manuel, right? Agarthan Master Manuel. So he visits there, he sees the beauty of Agartha, he loves to be there. But again, he was actually missing his mom as well as the sister, because he was under the assumption that they were still alive and they are really waiting to see him, right? After a few, again, there is no time in the Agartha kingdom, but actually compared to the earth time variation, so it's almost like approximately 3 years he ended up in the city of Telos or in the Agartha kingdom. So he decides to go back. He takes the permission of Master Arniel, and he goes back to Seattle with because the Agarthan masters gives him money, the flight ticket, and all of that, including passport and everything. And then now he is in Seattle, and after he visits Seattle, and when he visits his house, he realizes that both his mom and sister passed away, and he was completely devastated to listen that information from his neighbor actually. And he also meets his friend Matt, and Matt reminds him about his mother, about his grandmother, right, who lives in Sweden. So that's where we stopped in the last session. So let's pick it up today in today's session. What he tries to convey to his grandmother. Does he go to Sweden to visit his grandmother and all of that? All right. So with Matt's help, like he tries to call his grandmother, and grandmother is in Sweden, right? And as soon as Tim calls grandmother was really, very excited and surprised in a way, actually, both excited at the same time surprised. And if you look here, he says, "My grandson, are you alive? Why didn't you ring before? Is it really you or just someone's idea of an unkind joke?" Right? Because she was thinking that, is it really Tim or somebody else was just pranking on her, saying that it's Tim. If it's really you, Tim, you should come and visit as soon as possible. So that's when he decides to go on a trip to Sweden and visit his only relative on the surface of the earth, which is his grandmother. Okay. Um, and his grandmother's name is Emily. Okay. And then he decides to take the flight. He goes to grandmother's place, and grandmother rushed out with open arms, actually. It was because his only relative on the earth's surface hugged him, right? Tears ran down her own cheeks, and she whispered repeatedly, "You're alive, you're alive." She was super excited to see her grandson. All right. So now she was astonished, but then she jumped out of her chair and hugged him. And she says, I've he explains that, like she explains that, Tim explains that he's in a different foreign place. It's a Agartha kingdom and all of that. And now grandmother says, I've, she believes, interestingly, she's the only one that believes after he came to the surface of the earth. And he says, she says that I've always believed the earth was hollow ever since I was at school. Remember, like in last session, I was telling that she was a little bit, she was spiritual to a certain extent, right? And she believes that, but everyone assured me it was impossible, as a planet, as the earth itself was full of molten lava and fire, just like a volcano, right? So that's what everyone was under the impression. But yes, inside the core of the earth, there is a hollow space, which is nothing but the Agartha kingdom. All right, so she's asking him, like, oh, tell me all the details about your visit to Telos, about your visit to Agartha kingdom, and all of that, right? But before she says that, she also wants to convey some important information um, about herself, like, because she is much more older than Tim, right? And Tim is visiting the grandmother almost many years actually. And she says that I am a medium and I help people, and actually have a good reputation here in Sweden. Actually, I lecture people about other planets, cosmic consciousness. I help people find their inner self, listen to their hearts, and straighten out their minds. So, this is what she's telling herself to Tim, which Tim was not familiar with in the past, actually. Um, but Tim believed her now, because his experience after visiting Telos and meeting different masters in Agartha kingdom completely changed his perception about all the spiritual things, right? So that's the reason she was able to completely understand what Tim was actually conveying about his visit to Agartha and visit to uh, Agarthan masters as well. So, with all the spiritual contacts that the grandmothers has actually, so she said she's going to invite a couple of them to our house and set up a meeting, right? And Tim was super excited. Why? Because his goal to come onto the surface of the earth, there were two things. From his side, he wants to meet his mom and sister, but like the master Arniel, if you remember, he says you can go and meet them, but you should also tell the people on the earth that we, as Agarthan masters, exist. There is a Agartha kingdom and all of that. That is something that they really want this information to come out. And he's super excited that grandmother is actually inviting a couple of spiritual people and setting up a meeting in her house on a Saturday. So many people actually were interested when they heard about the hollow earth and the whole of Telos city and all of this, right? 24 people agreed and they came. Grandmother was serving coffee and cakes. Most of them did not really believe, right? It was very difficult for Tim to convince people because he didn't have any evidence, right? And they were asking a lot of questions because they didn't believe. They were asking a lot of questions. How come you are telling this information? Why did scientists didn't discover this before? Because people want proof. That's right. People are not in that consciousness to believe blindly from their perspective, because they're looking for some kind of an evidence, because they were not sure that Tim was really telling the truth, right? Especially he returning after 3 years was misleading for them to believe, actually. But his mission was to tell, right? So, as Arniel said, right, your mission is to tell. Whether people believe it or not, it's up to them, but you should do what you're supposed to do, right? But with all of this information that he was carrying it out about Agartha kingdom, about this core of the earth and all of this, and it just quite spread in the whole of city of Florida, where which is part of the Sweden where the grandmother lives. And he started getting a lot of threats, right? So in terms of all the threats from various people, that is because they were not believing that whatever he was saying was really genuine content. So with all the threats and everything, he appointed a bodyguard actually. His name is Chaos, and he is actually pretty pretty safe. He was actually helping him in various ways once he appointed as a bodyguard, and he also bought a dog actually. His name is called Twitch actually. And but even though he was a little disappointed that people were not believing, grandmother was a source of encouragement. Constantly, she was supporting him, and and he lived with his grandmom for almost about 3 months, trying to convince people, trying to follow the mission, and all of that. But after a point, grandmother says, Tim, you can stay here as long as you want. But how long do you really want to continue this mission of spreading this? Nobody is actually believing. People really want the evidence, right? The proof. So how are you going to convince the people, right? So these are some of the questions that grandmother started raising. And then Tim actually keeps thinking about it, right? Now, what should I do? And all of that. He's really confused, actually. So one day he actually goes on a walk along with his dog, Twitch. Twitch is the dog, right? And he's really confused. He wants to go back to the Agartha kingdom, actually, now. But he also wants to continue this mission, but he's not getting all the support that needs because nobody is really believing other than the grandmother. So he's confused. If you remember, like the Master Arniel gave a whistle actually when he was in Agartha kingdom. He uses that whistle because he was in a confused state of what to do, right? So as soon as it blow the whistle, Manuel, the master, Agarthan master, comes actually physically in front in the forest when he was actually in the walk when he goes with Twitch. And then like he asked all these questions, right? So I know I'm part of this mission. I came here to spread this awareness, but nobody is believing, right? And everybody's asking for a proof. So what should I do, right? And if you want, you can, Manuel says, listen to your heart and decide what you really want to do, right? Do you really want to, if you want to come back to Agartha, you're more than welcome to come back. So you can also bring your dog, Twitch, if you want to come. But it's your free will. Like if you want to stay back, you can stay back. If you want, you can come, and we'll definitely help you and take you back to the Agartha, is what he says. So now he wants to go back to Seattle actually. From Seattle, he has to go to the Mount Shasta, right? From Mount Shasta, Manuel will come and take him, right? That is how he came out from the Agartha kingdom. So now what he decides is he goes back. Tim decides to goes back to Seattle from Sweden actually. But Sweden, his grandmother is there, right? So he is the only living relative that he has now. It's very hard for him to leave his grandma, but he decides to leave and he goes back to Seattle. And after he goes back to Seattle, his friend Matthew, right? He wants to go and meet his Matthew friend. If you remember, like he met his friend Matthew for a dinner, right? And Matthew, his wife Nancy, and they also have a little girl, Ellie, who is 3 or 4 years old, and Nancy was expecting another child 3 months back, right? 3 months back before he went to Sweden. Now, when he goes back and when he was trying to meet Matthew, actually, he was completely shocked actually because Nancy eyes were completely red. She was crying, and um, and he heard the terrible news that Matthew was actually dead in a car accident actually. And so what happened? So now Nancy, and immediately after that accident, she delivered the baby prematurely, and that baby unfortunately couldn't survive. So now Nancy is all alone with that little girl, the first girl, which is Ellie. So those two family members were there actually. And this Ellie, this little girl, is a very spiritual, highly elevated soul, actually. And she whispered in Tim's ear, I saw that daddy would die soon. So this little girl knew what is going to happen even before his dad could die, actually. And I saw that you and mommy would actually move to some place which is full of flowers. So now this Tim is in deciding, like, can I take Nancy? Can I take this little girl, Ellie? Because they are all by themselves. Like, he didn't want to leave his friend's wife and daughter all by themselves in Seattle. And he actually takes a whistle and he asks for Manuel's advice. And Manuel says, yes, you can definitely bring both of them. And he also asks if grandmother can come, right? Grandmother also can also come. So that's what Manuel says. So he decides to take all of these people, actually. Grandmother, Nancy, the little girl, Ellie, and remember Twitch also, the dog. Also, he got permission from Manuel. So he immediately calls grandmother. He says that, hey, let's go to Agartha, because she's very spiritual. She's very excited to go, right? And she told her to pack her things and get onto a possible flight and come to Seattle. So all of them now, once grandmother comes to Seattle, they go to the Mount Shasta place, right? The journey to Mount Shasta. And it's at that place now Manuel will come and actually take everybody to the Agartha kingdom. Okay. If you remember in the beginning of the session one, I said Tim currently lives in the Agartha kingdom. So at this point now all of them goes to Agartha kingdom and Tim never comes back. So Tim is still in Agartha kingdom. And that's how Tim is actually explaining all this, his experience to the author. Okay, I'll just pause here. I just want to see if anybody has any questions or if you're able to follow. Okay.
Yeah, so actually, who else is there? Myself, Anu, and Karna is only there, right? In this meeting?
I am also there.
Oh. Okay. So, yeah, I just joined today, but I am able to follow. So, I will ask questions if I have anything. Okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah, sounds good. All right. So now, so Tim, so Manuel picks up Tim, the little girl Ellie, Nancy, grandmother's name is Emily, right? And also the dog. Remember, the dog is also with them. So all of them now comes to the inner core. And now, for Tim, this is not a first time experience, right? Tim has already visited. He has that experience. Now, for grandmother, that little girl Nancy, it's a totally different experience. What they're seeing is very different now from what they have seen on this outer surface of the earth versus inner surface of the earth now. All right. So now with that, for Manuel, oh, it's great to see happy children, he said. I bid you all a warm welcome to our land. We'll do our best to make you happy here. The grandmother Emily looked around and then exclaimed, this is nothing new. I recognize this from my dreams. So grandmother Emily had dreams, right? During her dreams in the past, she has visited Telos astrally, right? So that's what she's explaining now. But it's now that she's able to see that with her naked eye, right? So that's the beauty that she's admiring in the Agartha kingdom. All right, so now she had greeted Manuel like an old friend and thanked him for his brilliant rescue of her beloved grandchild, because Manuel is the one who saved him, right? So she's very happy and she's very expressing her gratitude to Manuel. Right, so Ellie was first. So that little girl was very excited, and she rushed and to open the door. There were, if you remember, in the first session we said that the houses are round in shape, right? And with very modern furniture. right? But though it was modern, that modern furniture is very different from the modern furniture that we have on the surface of the earth. And moreover, these houses are roofless. They don't have roofs on the top. They're one big single circular shape central area, but they don't have any roof. And the other thing is, this place, there is no difference between night and daytime. It's always nice and very bright and sunny, right? There's no concept of darkness or light. It's always really bright and sunny throughout the day. There's no difference between day and night, basically. And there were some portable screens in case a separate bedroom was needed. So whenever they really wanted wanted to sleep, it's just the power of the thought, right? The way they even cook food, there is no ovens, there is no kitchen, it's just that they have to press a button, and the power of the thought, they just get the food that they want, actually. So this was pretty mesmerizing and pretty interesting for Nancy and for that little girl. Actually, we'll get to that in the next slides. But that's how the Agarthan masters are living, actually. Agarthan people are living over there. Okay, so yeah, there wasn't really a kitchen, just a place near the wall where cups and plates were stacked on a shelf above an ample table with drawers. There is no oven or sink or dishwasher. I think Nancy is not trying to adapt it. If you look at the way she's asking and all of this, grandmother was super excited. Ellie was very fascinated. But Nancy seems to have these questions because she is expecting Agartha kingdom to be more or less like the surface of the earth. She's saying, oh, there is no oven, there is no sink, there is no dishwasher, and how does people make food? How do they get food, right? And Tim is explaining that you just press a button and decide what do you want, and you'll get it. It's just the power of the thought. And Nancy asked, do people even work here? Everyone works, Nancy, but in a different way than you do. Remember in session 1, we were talking about people work there, but people work only 4 hours a day. And throughout the work, they enjoy their work. They're not required or they're not obligated to work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours like on the surface of the earth. They just do only 4 hours, but they do it with so much focus and passion, and they just remaining time they just enjoy dancing, singing, and all that. So there is no difference of work and enjoying for them. That's how the Agarthan masters are. Okay. And she's also wondering now, she's also asking questions like, if some people get hurt, right, how do they get healed? Do you have hospitals here? Do you have doctors here? And Manuel and Tim, they're answering that we don't have hospitals, but we do have people who are healers, right? They can heal. How do they heal them? Because they can, the healing is very different, right? Their sorrow or whatever it is, they give that wisdom. They tell them how to be more positive. They tell them how to heal themselves by the power of the thoughts, by changing all of that. Okay. So she had so many questions because she's worried about her little daughter, right? Because she came into a new unknown place. So that's what she was wondering. All right. So next, Ellie rushes to the backyard of the house and she sees all these wild animals roaming freely. And that is another difference here in the Agartha kingdom. Animals are not tied, right? They can roam freely, including the wild animals like lions, tigers, whatever it is. There are also dragons and all of that in this Agartha kingdom. So Tim is explaining her, you have to learn not to be scared and to wait for the animal to come and let you pat it, right? You just stay calm and animals can sense that. If you're afraid, then animals can also sense that. You just have to stay very calm and they will not harm you, or they'll not, bother you much, is what he's trying to explain. And they walked on the grass between spaciously arranged houses and soon reached by a board and the house next door where grandmother would live. So basically they have separate houses. Tim's house is different and grandmother's house is different. Now they are trying to go to the grandmother's house so that she can settle in and adjust and be at that place. Again, this house is also the same, right? All houses are pretty much the same, that are roofless. And all the houses are surrounded with a lot of greenery around the exterior walls, which is roses, climbing plants everywhere. All right, so now this is another conversation between Nancy and Ellie, right? So she's asking the little girl is asking her mom, right? What's the time? It's always pretty bright, and and she's asking, and Nancy says, our clocks aren't working, darling. Nancy sat on the edge of her daughter's bed. I haven't had a clue what time it is. As yesterday evening, it didn't get dark when we went to bed. But I feel rested, so I think you should get up now. There's a lot to see and find out, like whether you can start school here. Now she's worried about Ellie, that if she can go to a school. So let me ask you a question. Do you think there are schools in the Agartha kingdom? Any guesses?
I guess no.
There might be.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix. Yes, I'll get there. So there are no schools, but there is something called a library. Okay, so these kids in Agartha kingdom, they go to these libraries. Okay, and how do they learn? There are two ways to learn. So they don't have any dedicated teachers and all of this. So the kids, right? So some kids want to do art. Art itself is a learning. Some kids, they are not interested in art. They just want to learn dance. That is also a learning. But few kids might say that, hey, I want to read a book. So they'll just pick up a book and read a book. So everything is a learning. So they don't force any kid, hey, you have to stop dancing, but you just have to read a book, right? It's a free will. So whatever they are interested, they are learning actually by going to that library. There are no dedicated teachers as such, but in the library there are few again of everybody is fifth dimensional being, right? So they will explain them. So some of them will teach these kids by acting actually. It's not the real, like, writing on a board or anything. They just act and explain these kids to understand the concepts and everything. So that is the difference. They're learning, but they don't have schools. So that's how it is for the kids over there. And then now Ellie is asking for cereal and milk for breakfast, right? So she's unable to get the cereal and milk, right? Because Agarthan masters, they eat everything pretty thing from the nature, right? So they don't eat anything which is coming out of the animals. No milk. And again, cereal is a manufactured one, right? It's not coming out from the nature. So that doesn't exist in Agartha kingdom at all. So now with all of this confusion with the food, with having no school, not able to get the cereals, chocolate muffins, and all of this, right? Nancy is a little confused. Now she's confused that did she do the right thing coming to Agartha kingdom? As a mother, is she doing the right thing for her daughter? Tim was pretty kind of disappointed, right? Because that's a bit strong, Nancy. This is a paradise, right? Because it's full of beauty, it's full of, and the people are more compassionate, people are more loving, people are very friendly over there. But Nancy is not getting that, right? She's trying to compare the outer surface of the earth versus the inner core of the earth. All right, so she's still in dilemma, but in the later part, I'll tell you what she decides to do. But basically, now all of them will actually go to in a hovercraft because they haven't been to Telos yet. Any question? Okay. So now they decide to go to Telos City. How do they go? They have a hovercraft. Manuel will take the hovercraft, and all these people will sit in a hovercraft, and they'll just. And why hovercraft? As I discussed in session 1, they never built roads in Agartha kingdom. Why did they not build? Because if you build roads, you have to start removing all the plants and all of this, right? Which they don't want to disturb the nature and the beauty. So these are enlightened beings, right? So even from a technology perspective, these are very advanced masters. So they have it's a flying machine, hovercraft like is a flying vehicle where it will fly up in the sky or in the space, and they can travel from one city to the other city. So now that's how they're traveling in a hovercraft, and all of these people. Telos isn't a country, it's just a city, right? So it's part of the Agartha kingdom. So all these questions Ellie keeps asking, because for Ellie, the little girl, it's the first time that she's visiting, right? So, and they're also, and the difference of the food. Now they're explaining the food. On the Earth's surface, we eat food which is processed and transported long distances, right? And some of this cooked food, some of the food that we eat is actually cooked by strangers, like especially if you store-bought food, is cooked by strangers that we don't even know, right? And it is how is that made? It's based on the personal energy. Like as meditators, we know the energy of the people, right? So that's the energy of the people who really cooked is actually put into the food. So food on the surface contains a confused mixture of energies, not all of them clean and pure. Here we eat food grown nearby in our own neighborhood. It hasn't been processed and is completely natural. And we enjoy cooking and creating with it without any byproducts. Heating up food destroys its nutritional value, right? But hard beans, those type of things will definitely need some cooking. But basically, they always eat fresh food and they don't store it. And then they don't even try to reheat it. They just cook and eat, basically, preserving the nutrients. So that's about food. I think I have few more slides, and I think we can, let's see the time check. It's okay. We have 10 more minutes. We'll do a few more slides and we'll pause. So now Nancy is asking about all the questions about working, right? And she's saying that I haven't seen a single person working here. Do invisible slaves do all the work for you? So Tim replied saying that everyone works 4 hours a day. We work intensively without a break to get everything done. Everything is well organized, but there are absolutely no slaves. We take time off without needing permission. We don't have to ask anybody if we really have to go for an appointment or to get some things work, right? Everyone is their own boss. Everyone is working at their free will. Because everyone has a job they enjoy. This is never a problem. So that's the difference on the working aspect on in the Agartha kingdom. All right, so sun, right? So if, as I said, right, so for them there is no darkness. It's always pretty beautiful and sunny. Now grandmother is wondering, why isn't it, the sun, it's bright, but it's never too hot for them, right? So it's lovely to feel the sun on my face. It doesn't feel as if I'm going to get sunburn, because the intensity of the sun is not so bad as we have it on the surface of the earth. And what Tim is explaining is, you won't hear. Our sun is electromagnetic based and doesn't produce dangerous rays. That is the difference, because the peoples have the thought, as I discussed in session 1, the weather is also very beautiful over there. Why? Because the people are enlightened. There is no hatred, there is no envy, no jealous, no fear or anger. Because of all of that, the weather is really beautiful. And similarly, the sun is also now it doesn't produce any dangerous rays over there. All right, so let's get into the library. And if you remember, now library is a place where kids are actually learning, right? So now the hovercraft lands in front of this library, okay? And that library is obviously it's in the Agartha kingdom, right? And Manuel is explaining that this is the biggest library in the world. You can find, we think, yeah, we have different amazing libraries, no doubt, on the surface of the earth, because if you just go to Harvard itself, there are many libraries within Harvard. There are many libraries, not just one library. There are many libraries just for the Harvard University or some Ivy League colleges. What he is saying is this library is the world's biggest library. So he's saying that we can find almost everything here, whether it's a past or present of our own earth or elsewhere in the universe. Right? So much of information you can actually get all the books actually. And as I explained, right, they're saying that instead of books, there are actors who answer our questions. They act out scenes as answers. Just wait. And Nancy is asking, there aren't any books here. It's not library in that case. There are books here too, but plays are more common. So instead of people reading the books, people are actually getting the wisdom from looking at the acts or the information that is provided by other people. That's how they're actually getting a lot of wisdom actually. Okay, so yeah. So okay, let's get this. So Manuel is saying that the surface of the earth, right, is about to undergo a cleaning and a cleansing like never before. There will be pain and innocent sacrifices, but the result will be reconstruction in the name of love and truth, converting the planet into a carrier of light. I, Merlin, proclaim this is the name of the eternal truth, the stage darkened. So Merlin is another master who is in the library and is actually acting a play. So remember, like I told you, like whenever they are acting, they're giving the wisdom. So now the day when they went, Merlin was actually telling all this information about what's going to happen on the surface of the earth actually. The most and the very biggest thing to difficult thing was there is a lack of day and night, and this is causing a lot of confusion for Nancy, the little girl, and all of that. And the friendly sunshine is eternal and unchanging. For surface dwellers, it's difficult to acclimatize, but in the end, they'll get used to it. So that's the biggest challenge. When to sleep, when to get up. So the time difference, there's no concept of time. So those were some biggest things for the people from the surface of the earth to adjust in the core of the earth actually. Okay, so with that, I will pause here. Any questions so far? Okay, so now I'll ask one question. So now that Nancy and Ellie are actually kind of struggling a little bit, right, to adjust in the Agartha kingdom. So what do you think is going to happen in the next part of the book? Do you think they'll stay back? They'll decide to stay back, or do you think they'll go back to Seattle? Any guesses? But we'll find out in the next session what's going to happen.
I think they'll stay back.
They'll stay back. Okay. Good. Any other guesses?
Yeah, so they don't have to work long hours.
There's no negativity.
Yeah.
No hatred, no fear, no jealousy. So why would they want to go back to
True. I
that
agree.
earth and dwell in that negative energies?
Energies. Yeah, that's a good point. But let's find out in the next session. But I think from Nancy perspective, right? She was looking for a different type of a school. She was looking for certain things. She's not able to adapt, right? She wants certain chocolate muffins. She wants her daughter to eat cereal. She wants daughter to eat milk, drink milk. So all of this are bothering. So will she adapt or will she go back? So yes, but in order for the people to be in Agartha kingdom, they should also be adjusted, right? So they have to go with this, go with the flow, right? They'll have to go with it. So those are some things she's kind of struggling. So let's find out in the next session whether she'll stay back or she'll go back to Seattle. Okay.
Is there regular flights to Seattle from there? Is it a joke or so?
No. Actually, in the session one, that's a good point. Thanks, Anuradha, for bringing it up. So when Tim actually comes, he enters because of a ship wreckage, right? Manuel saves him.
Oh,
But
okay.
when he has to go back, these Agarthan masters are enlightened beings, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
the power of the thought, they created a passport for him. They created money, currency, what's US people, like Seattle is in US, right? So currency, they gave him all the money, everything. And what Manuel did was, Manuel through the tunnel, like Mount Shasta has one entry point. So from there, he actually goes and drops Manuel using certain devices, whatever the travel mode of mechanism, right? He will drop him at Mount Shasta point, on the surface point. From there, he has to go to California through different buses and all of this. Okay, he has money now.
Okay.
Manuel won't come from Mount Shasta. And then from California airport, now he has a passport, right? Everything is given to him. From there, he'll actually take a flight from California to Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah. So
From there, I will go to how it's through the tunnel. They have to walk and go to this place.
yeah, from the Agartha kingdom to the Mount Shasta.
Yeah.
So that is up to Manuel, right? So using the hovercraft, they will actually, one thing, if you in the session 2 also, they'll say that from that point, from Mount Shasta to the inner of the, it's pretty tedious actually. That's what they describe, but they didn't describe how exactly that happens. Manual will help them, but it is not a very easy path to get in. It's not
Yeah.
very easy. Yeah, so I think they'll take some hovercrafts and all of this, or underground, right? So they'll have more and more different things. Yeah.
Okay.
But Manuel will drop. Actually, when they were coming, Manuel picked them up at the Mount Shasta point.
Okay.
Until Mount Shasta, these people came, right? The
Yes.
little girl, grandmother, the dog, Nancy, and
Oh
Tim.
yeah.
All 5 of them, they'll actually take the flights to California, and from buses and everything, they will take the effort to come to that point, actually, to Mount Shasta.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. From there, Manuel will help, but still, even though Manuel helps, what they're describing, the author is describing in this book, is it's not a easy journey to get in. Manuel will help, but yeah, they'll also have to make a good effort to go through that tough time to get into that Agartha kingdom. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right. With that, thank you all for joining today's session. Looking forward for another session next week. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam, for taking time to prepare these beautiful slides with some interesting intersections in every slide. So much for taking time. It needs a lot of time and patience. So now it's not only a reading book, right? You have to summarize it like this in the form of slides and engage the audience in such a way. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Agartha Master. All right. Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you, masters. Bye.